Do you remember the first time you watched the original Pokemon anime? Back in the late 90s, the Kanto region wasn't just a map you navigated on a Game Boy. It was an untamed frontier. There was a distinct feeling that humanity was living on the edge of a world they barely understood, and nothing captured that sheer, terrifying scale of the unknown quite like the sudden, unexplained appearances of the giant Pokémon. Before Dynamax mechanics, before Totem Pokémon or Alpha variants, there were the Titans of the Indigo League, colossal, godlike creatures that defied all known biology and Pokémon research. A shadow towering over the ocean waves at Bill's Lighthouse. A kaiju-sized Tentacruel laying waste to Porta Vista. Prehistoric beasts awakening from a millennia-long slumber in Grampa Canyon. And, perhaps most chilling of all, the apocalyptic dark titans that emerged from the ruins of Pocomopoulos. These weren't just anomalies, they were remnants of a primordial era. For decades, fans have wondered where these behemoths came from and why the anime suddenly stopped showing them. The truth lies buried in the forgotten lore of the series' original head writer, Takeshi Shudo, who envisioned a Pokemon world far darker and more dangerous than what we know today. Today, we are reopening the files on Kanto's lost giants. We will analyze the ancient puzzles, decode the original Japanese light novels, and piece together the true origin of these colossal anomalies. If you are ready to uncover the darkest secrets of the Pokemon world, make sure to hit that subscribe button and leave a like on this video to support the investigation. Now let's turn back the clock to a time when gods walked the earth. The investigation begins on a lonely cliff overlooking the ocean, bathed in thick, impenetrable fog. Episode 13, Mystery at the Lighthouse, introduced us to Bill, a brilliant Pokemon researcher who isolated himself from the world to study an anomaly. He had been listening to a sound echoing across the waters, a mournful, booming cry that belonged to a creature larger than anything recorded in the Pokédex. When the fog briefly parts, we see the silhouette of a titanic Pokemon. Modern fans easily recognize the shape as a Dragonite, but the scale is completely wrong. A standard Dragonite stands roughly 7 feet tall. The entity looming over Bill's lighthouse was colossal, easily dwarfing the massive building itself. But the true mystery isn't just its size, it is what the creature represents. Bill states that this Pokemon is wandering the ocean alone, looking for others of its kind. It is the last remnant of a forgotten species, or perhaps a forgotten era. Takeshi Shudo, the original head writer of the anime, often emphasized the tragic and alien nature of Pokemon in his writings. In Shudo's universe, heavily detailed in his Japanese light novels, Pokemon were not just friendly pets. They were powerful, enigmatic beings that suddenly appeared on Earth, disrupting the natural order. This giant Dragonite perfectly encapsulates that original, terrifying vision. It does not fit into a Pokeball. It does not battle for gym badges. It exists completely outside the human understanding of Pokemon biology. The creature's mournful song is a broadcast to an empty world, desperately searching for peers that have either died out or retreated into the darkest trenches of the sea. It simply turns and vanishes into the fog, realizing that humanity is too primitive or perhaps too aggressive to understand it. This encounter was our first clue that Kanto's history was hiding massive ancient secrets. But while the Lighthouse Titan was a gentle giant looking for connection, our next anomaly proved that not all colossal Pokemon were peaceful. Some were ancient forces of nature, capable of wiping a modern city off the map. If the shadow at the lighthouse was a lonely ghost, the monster that attacked Porta Vista was a wrathful god. Episode 19, Tentacruel and Tentacruel shifted the tone of the series from mysterious to genuinely apocalyptic. In this episode, a greedy real estate developer destroys a massive coral reef to build a luxury resort. In retaliation, the local Tentacruel swarm the city. But it wasn't just a swarm. Fueled by the destruction of their habitat, one of the Tentacruel rapidly evolves into a Tentacruel the size of a skyscraper. This wasn't a standard evolution. It was a rapid, terrifying mutation. The creature towers over the buildings, effortlessly leveling the city and swatting away modern weapons as if they were toys. To understand why this happened, we have to look at the thematic core of Takeshi Shudo's writing. Shudo was deeply fascinated by the friction between human expansion and the natural habitat of Pokémon. In his universe, Pokémon were the dominant species, and human society was fragile, constantly at the mercy of the elements. The giant Tentacruel was a literal manifestation of nature's wrath, heavily inspired by the Japanese kaiju genre. Just like Godzilla was awakened by human arrogance, this Tentacruel was a dormant, destructive potential unlocked by the destruction of the natural order. But from a biological standpoint, the implications of this episode are staggering. The fact that a standard Pokémon could spontaneously undergo such extreme gigantism suggests that the genetic code for these colossal forms is still hidden inside modern Pokémon. The Tentacruel even uses Meowth for telepathic communication to deliver a chilling ultimatum to humanity, displaying an ancient, hyper-intelligent sentience that standard Pokémon rarely exhibit. This incident proved that the colossal scale of the Lighthouse Dragonite was not an isolated freak of nature. The biological trigger for massive growth exists waiting to be pulled. It raises a terrifying question. What else is sleeping beneath the surface of the Kanto region? The answer to that question was waiting deep underground, buried beneath layers of prehistoric rock. The trail of colossal anomalies leads us away from the ocean and deep into the scorched earth of Grampa Canyon. In episode 48, Attack of the Prehistoric Pokémon, the series introduced a terrifying new layer to the mystery of giant Pokémon. This wasn't a lonely ghost in the fog, and it wasn't a sudden mutation triggered by environmental collapse. This was a direct window into the primordial past. When Ash falls into a subterranean cavern beneath the canyon, he doesn't just find fossils, he finds a thriving, ancient ecosystem. Omastar, Kabutops, and a monstrous Aerodactyl had been sleeping in suspended animation for thousands of years. But what is truly shocking is the scale of the apex predator. According to the official Pokédex, a standard Aerodactyl stands just shy of 6 feet tall. The creature that awakens in Grampa Canyon is easily triple that size, capable of snatching Ash up in a single talon and soaring effortlessly into the clouds. This presents a massive shift in our understanding of Pokémon history. The gigantism we saw in the Tentacruel was a temporary, localized mutation. But the Aerodactyl proves that in the ancient world, massive size was the standard. The ancient Earth was a realm of titans. The Grampa Canyon incident implies that a global cataclysm occurred millennia ago, forcing these massive original Pokémon deep underground where they entered a dormant state to survive. The Pokémon that roam the surface today are merely the smaller adapted descendants of these ancient titans. They shrank over thousands of years to adapt to a changing climate and less abundant resources, much like real-world prehistoric megafauna. But Grampa Canyon left us with a dark realization. If these prehistoric giants are just sleeping beneath the earth, what happens when human excavation wakes them up? The Aerodactyl was just an animal acting on instinct. It was dangerous, but it wasn't evil. However, our final investigation will take us to an archaeological dig that uncovered something far worse. a civilization that didn't just live alongside giant Pokémon, but worshipped them as dark, apocalyptic gods. The final piece of the puzzle lies in the desolate ruins of an ancient civilization. Episode 74, The Ancient Puzzle of Pocomopoulos, is arguably the darkest and most lore-heavy chapter of the original series. Here, an archaeological dig uncovers artifacts belonging to a lost city that was mysteriously wiped off the map centuries ago. But the researchers didn't just find pottery. They found ancient containment devices. When these artifacts are disturbed, they unleash something straight out of a nightmare. A colossal Gengar, etched with glowing tribal markings, emerges from a dark urn, instantly absorbing people and Pokémon into the void of its shadowy body. Soon after, an equally massive, marked Alakazam is released. These were not biological anomalies like the Tentacruel, nor were they prehistoric survivors like the Aerodactyl. They were something far more terrifying. They were ancient gods of destruction. The ensuing battle between these two titans threatens to rip the very fabric of reality apart, painting the sky in apocalyptic hues. The sheer scale and supernatural power of the Pocomopoulos giants completely dwarf anything we saw at Bill's Lighthouse or down in Grampa Canyon. The episode's lore implies that the people of Pocomopoulos worshipped these entities, but eventually their destructive power grew too great to control. The artifacts they left behind were not early Pokeballs. They were desperate, magical seals created by a doomed civilization trying to trap the very deities that were annihilating them. This terrifying scenario aligns perfectly with Takeshi Shudo's ultimate vision for the franchise. In Shudo's planned, unproduced ending for the Pokemon anime, a massive uprising was meant to occur, with Pokemon realizing they were vastly superior to the humans using them as tools. The Pocomopolis incident was a grim, isolated preview of that apocalyptic concept. It stands as a warning from the past that humanity's control over Pokemon is a fragile illusion. Even the giant Jigglypuff that finally emerges from an ancient bell to sing the warring titans back to sleep isn't a savior. It is just another supernatural fail-safe left behind by a desperate, dying culture. When we connect the dots between the lonely Dragonite in the fog, the mutated Tentacruel, the prehistoric Aerodactyl, and the dark gods of Pocomopolis, a chilling picture of Kanto's true history emerges. The world of Pokemon wasn't always a colorful, cheerful adventure. It was a terrifying, primordial landscape, ruled by colossal beings of immense power. The Pokemon we train today are merely the diminished echoes of a forgotten, violent age. And as these ancient anomalies prove, those sleeping giants are always waiting just beneath the surface, ready to remind humanity exactly who truly owns the world. The mysteries of the Indigo League remind us that the Kanto region is built on top of a forgotten, terrifying past. From the lonely silhouette at Bill's Lighthouse to the apocalyptic clash over the ruins of Pocomopolis, these colossal entities prove that the Pokemon world was once a wildly different place, ruled by untamed giants. Takeshi Shudo's original vision left us with a chilling warning. Humanity is just a small, fragile piece of a much larger and more dangerous ecosystem. We might capture these creatures in modern Pokeballs today, but deep down, the lore tells us the truth. The primordial titans are still out there, sleeping in the earth, waiting in the uncharted depths of the ocean. And sometimes, when the natural order is disturbed, they wake up. What do you think is the true biological or supernatural origin of these ancient giants? Which of these colossal Pokemon terrified you the most as a kid? Drop your theories in the comments below, because I read every single one of them. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the lost history of the Pokemon anime, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Turn on those notifications so you never miss our next investigation into the darkest, unsolved secrets of the Pokemon universe. Until next time, keep searching for the truth and stay safe out there in the tall grass.